Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. Our friend Ryan Grimm is in for Crystal Ball, so it's always amazing. It's good to see you, Ryan. Thanks for joining us, my friend.
Amazing to see you, Saagar.
Well, of course it is. Of course it is, Ryan. And we've also got, we got Brianna Joy Gray. She's in the show today. She's going to talk about diversity in Joe Biden's administration. And we're going to talk with my friend Ryan Gerdusky. He's going to tell us what is really at stake for Republicans in those Georgia Senate runoff races, which is going to be fun. But we got to start off the show with some pretty big news. Attorney General Bill Barr coming out yesterday. Let's throw this up there on the screen. He's telling the Associated Press that the Justice Department has not uncovered widespread voting fraud that could have changed the 2020 election. Now, specifically, Attorney General Barr said that U.S. attorneys and FBI agents were working to follow up on specific complaints about the election, but, quote from the story, they have uncovered no evidence that would change the outcome. I think is interesting. Let's throw the Associated Press up there. And what's important to understand here, Ryan, is that, look, we said this here at the time, and actually Crystal in particular caught a lot of flack for this. People were like, how can you say this is part of the coup and all that? And we're like, everybody calm down. It's probably going to work out okay, and so be it. That's what we got. Even the Attorney General, Bill Barr, who I know the left is like he's slavishly devoted to Trump and all that. Look, I mean, the guy came out and explicitly said there was no voter fraud. So, I mean, isn't this something at least that they can trust? What do you think?
I mean, it does show that if a candidate wins by a sizable enough majority, the system is solid.
Yeah.
And not only did Trump fall short of his attempt to kind of overturn the election results, he got nowhere with it. Like not even close. And that is indeed kind of remarkable. This is the sitting president who had an extreme loyalist at his disposal at the head of the law enforcement wing of the party. He had some of his partisan supporters in key positions around the country, and he wasn't even able to get going on this attempt. You know, that there is still a norm in this country that is very protective of the idea of voting, and people had their say. They counted the votes. It was fairly decisive. You know, you can argue that one thing or another could have gone a different way and Trump would have done better. That's not what happened. And so the American people kind of decided, look, Biden won this election. And once the American people and also, the media more generally said, look, Biden won this election, then it was over. And there wasn't really anything that Trump could do, even though, as he said, he had a lot of advocates in the Supreme Court and he had appointed a lot of judges to the judiciary. So, it is a feather in the cap of the American electoral system.
Yeah, I think you're really right there. And look, this is something we kept saying here over and over again. We're like, calm down, man. Wait for these election certifications. Wait for things to play out in court. We read through every single one of these lawsuits here, which were dismissed over and over and over again. And lo and behold, it's December 2nd. How many certifications we have rolling in? I think only California and a few others are the ones that are left. And in 12 days, the Electoral College is going to meet. Then January 6th, the Congress is going to accept the Electoral College, and then it'll all officially be done. But it's just a lesson that just because somebody is out there mouthing off doesn't mean that is the way that things actually work. I'm not to say that mouthing off and sowing distrust or whatever isn't damaging. It certainly is. And I especially think in the Republican Party, which we'll talk about, and how those Georgia Senate races are going to go. But we should note, to that effect, some people are really pissed at Bill Barr for coming out and saying this. You actually found this clip from Lou Dobbs. Let's take a listen to what he said last night.
For the Attorney General of the United States to make that statement, he is either a liar or a fool or both. He may be perhaps compromised. He may be simply unprincipled.
This is always so funny to me, Ryan, because these are the people who cheer on Barr whenever he'll come out and talk about, Russian. He called out Russian collusion. These are the people who called out whenever he'll back up Trump on many of the things that they actually align on. And then all of a sudden, he's compromised. I even saw people talking yesterday about how he's a George W. Bush appointee or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I agree. I'm generally suspicious of people appointed by Bush or even H.W. Bush. But, he was basically aligned with everything. And then the moment you step out, you're just completely done in their eyes. It's like, oh, now he's compromised.
Yeah, it shows that there's no amount of loyal service that can build enough credibility to be trusted to go up against President Trump. In any case, if anybody had built that amount of credibility through loyal service, it was William Barr. And right, you see Lou Dobbs suggesting that he's either a fool, a liar, or perhaps he's even compromised.
Yeah.
Compromised by who? Like who? It doesn't remotely make sense. Yet the sowing of the doubt will create millions of people who will believe that the election was stolen. And we'll see what the consequences of that are. It has a bit of a reminder of the stab in the back. Where there was this idea among the German public in the early part of the 20th century that that the German army was really on the brink of winning
Sure.
World War I. And it was these elites that decided that they wanted to lose the war to France and to Britain instead, and they stabbed the German Republic in the back, and that created so much hostility and animosity toward elites that it produced populist movements on both the left and the right, and we know where that wound up. Now I don't think this is exactly comparable. But this sowing of the idea that these elites have conspired to stab regular people in the back is something that we'll be living with for the next couple decades.
No, I think that's. Look, I mean, obviously it's not the same as stabbed in the back and all of that. But, I mean, yes, we are going to be living with those consequences. And that's where the Trump campaign is headed. Let's throw their statement up there on the screen. We saw immediately afterwards President Trump's lawyers, Rudy Giuliani and Jenna Ellis, they released this statement saying, with all due respect to the Attorney General, that they believe that the FBI and the Attorney General had not pursued a more vigorous investigation. Now, it's not as scathing as their statements normally are, but they're saying he hasn't looked hard enough. He needs to look harder. He should have done a better job and more. So they're not, taking this as an article of faith or anything whatsoever. And I guess what's interesting, too, at the same time, is there's these news stories. Now, look, I mean, it's from the New York Times, and I don't generally trust these gossip ones, but they did report this yesterday. Let's throw this up there on the screen about Rudy Giuliani. And so Rudy Giuliani reportedly had discussed possible pardoning with Trump. Now, I mean, I don't know exactly what that could encompass, but it was for himself. And it seems to be in lieu of what I think is a large driving force between some of this, which is, look, there are a lot of state attorney generals out there, like in New York, who are out for blood against Trump. And one of the reasons why he doesn't necessarily, the Trump family and all of them don't necessarily want to leave office is because they know that there are a lot of these like bloodthirsty public officials who want to go after them. By the way, I think it's a terrible norm in American politics. But Sean Hannity actually talked about that on his show last night. Let's take a listen.
Then you've got Robert Mueller's pit bull, Andrew Weissman, writing in the New York Times that he believes that the next attorney general, if it's Biden's, should investigate Trump and, if warranted, prosecute him for potential crimes, going back to Russia, and obstruction on Russia when it was based on a phony dossier. I read that, and I said on the air today on radio, I said, this 3 years this guy did this. And if that's what they want to do, if Biden ever became president, I'd tell Trump, pardon yourself and pardon your family. These people are based on a phony dossier.
So there you go. I mean, you can actually see what Hannity is talking about there. I think largely, though, I mean, I'm curious what your perspective is there. I think prosecuting, political opponents, especially presidents, is like terrible for the country. I mean, I would have said that about Hillary, and I think it would be the same thing around here. And just in general, I cannot think of anything more inflammatory where if, President Trump and many of the people who voted for him, look, they trust him and him alone. Let's be totally honest. And they think that this election was stolen from him. And then they see prosecutorial efforts in order to fine him or throw him in jail. I mean, that's bad, right? I mean, that really sets bad political conditions.
One thing that's going on here is that, both Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump impute to their opponents motives that they have. In other words, they, whatever they think they would do to an opponent, they assume an opponent would do to them. And like you said, he spent 2015 and 2016 leading chants of lock her up, and it became kind of an interchangeable chant. He even said Biden should be locked up.
Sure.
And started getting that chant going. Anybody that they didn't like at rallies, they would start chanting that they should be locked up. But you're right on a general level that once political parties start consistently jailing each other once they get into power, that really marks a break with a previous style of government, because now all of a sudden losing power doesn't just mean that you're going to go join a strategic consulting firm, and join 2 extra country clubs and be out of power for 4 years and then take another shot at getting back in. It means that you might be facing imprisonment, and so then people start to cling to power above all else, given what the relative alternative is. And the bar to break that norm, I think, has to be so extreme that you have to almost be trying to rescue the republic from demise in order to break it. I could see an argument, and I pushed for it at the time, that people in the Bush administration should be investigated, and if crimes were found, prosecuted for torture, for rendition, for those kinds of extreme human rights abuses. There were charges that could have potentially been referred, but that doesn't mean that you prosecute every one of your political opponents.
No, you're exactly right. There's a big difference between like campaign finance law and causing the deaths of millions of people and, tens of thousands of your own citizens who happen to serve in uniform. And so I always think we should keep that distinction in mind. Anyway, it's an interesting development. We're going to see how more of it plays out, and we will have more Rising for everybody right after this.